sake of everyone here, both the panelists and the listeners, this session is being recorded for our own YouTube platform. So we usually record these sessions and, put them up, post them up on our YouTube platform so that people who missed it, who are unable to join, will then be able to join us. So it's just proper for us to let you know that this is being recorded. So thank you, everyone. I can see that everybody's microphone is muted as expected. And when other people join us, their microphones will be muted as they join as well. This evening, we're specifically going to have 3 mentors from the client side on our mentors stool session. And in no particular order, I'm just going to call them. Again, I'm going to be very selfish because I'm a woman, so I'm going to take the lady first. So I'll start with Mrs. Folake Ani-Mumuney, FNIMN, HCIB, CIMN, UK. So I'll read her profile. I'm going to read the profile of the 3 panelists before we dive straight into questions. Just before I start, I'd like to ask the panelists if they have any questions they would like to ask before I go ahead with the profiles.
None from me, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Okeme, any from you?
None from me, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Adejumo? Fantastic. So
None from me.
Okay, so Agbons, I think we should quickly do a brief introduction of the brief faculty, because I'm not sure our panelists are aware of that.
Okay, let me leave you to do that.
All right, good. So real fast, we want to appreciate you joining us once again. So brief faculty was started in 2017 thereabout, and the intent was just to have this kind of platform where the young and the old can come together and knowledge can be transferred. We specifically wanted a place where we can cross-ventilate ideas, and see how the baton can be handed over to the next generation. I'm not saying the older generations will leave now, but that's just what we are trying to do. And every 1 year, I lead the team, and we have about 7 of us who are co-members of the Senate. We call them Senate of the Brief Faculty. And those are the 7-man team that leads the running of the Brief Faculty. The Brief Faculty started from just a WhatsApp group, okay, for that purpose. And now it has extended beyond the WhatsApp group. And now we have offline and online meetings. And this is just one of the expressions of what we do. All right, so that's just it briefly. Over to you, Agbons.
Okay, thank you, Demola. So I'll move on straight to reading the profiles, and I'll start with the profile of Mrs. Folake Ani-Mumuney. Folake Ani-Mumuney leads the marketing and corporate communications function globally for the First Bank Group, Nigeria's foremost commercial banking group with presence across the African continent, China, and the UK. Folake also has oversight functions for some of the FBN Holding PLC and its subsidiaries. She serves as the Chairman Board of Directors, FBN Insurance Brokers, Vice Chairman Junior Achievement Nigeria, and sits on the Executive Council of the World Federation of Advertisers. With a career spanning over 25 years across diverse sectors such as banking, aviation, manufacturing, oil and gas, amongst others, Folake has held varied roles, leading strategy and business planning across business analysis and process reengineering, business development, innovation, and marketing. Folake holds a first degree in philosophy from the University of Lagos, Nigeria, a second degree in law from the University of Buckingham, England, and a diploma in business computing systems analysis and design. She's an alumnus of the prestigious Harvard Business School Advanced Management Program and has attended many executive education programs from leading business schools. A seating ovation for Mrs. Folake Ani-Mumuney. I know we're unable to stand up because this is a Zoom session. So I'll move on to the second person in no specific order, please. Mr. David Okeme. Mr. David Okeme is a Unilever trained manager with deep understanding of Nigeria, Africa, and the global market. His functional career experience covers the 4 lanes of marketing: brand building, brand development, sales and customer development, trade customer marketing. At the leadership level, he was Regional Brand Development Manager, Africa, Middle East and Turkey, Unilever Arabia, and as Marketing Director, Unilever Nigeria from 2010 to 2016. He has done a successful career switch over to payments technology and currently the divisional CEO, payments applications and vertical markets at Systemspecs, Remita. He has a strong national, regional, and global network, an alumnus of the University of Jos, London Business School, and the Wharton Business School, a fellow of Institute of Marketing, and a strong data and digital enthusiast. A sitting ovation for Mr. Okeme, please. And last but not the least, we'll take Mr. Godfrey Adejumo. Godfrey Adejumo is a seasoned public relations practitioner with know-how in corporate communications, external affairs, and sustainable business. He contributes in various ways to the development of the public relations industry through thought leadership write-ups on issues that enhance knowledge, share, and discourse. These include what is the currency of a PR practitioner, a tale of two PR practitioners, driving effective stakeholder management in public relations, etc. With over 10 years experience in public relations, Godfrey has honed his skills by contributing to the reputation management of multinationals like MTN, Unilever, DuPont, Reckitt Benckiser, LG Electronics, Accenture, Vertigard, and DHL. As the corporate communications manager at Unilever Nigeria, he supports the business with enhanced narratives in its mission to drive sustainable growth and create a brighter future for Africa through its brand and operations in Nigeria. While at MTN as the external communications officer, he played a critical role in the ideation and strategic development of the brand marketing communications and MTN Foundation's impact-based campaigns. He holds a master's degree in public and international affairs from the University of Lagos and a bachelor's degree in philosophy from the University of Benin. A sitting applause, please. Thank you, everyone. So we'll then dive straight into the questions, and in no specific order, I'm going to start with Mr. Okeme. Now, we all know that, I mean, as at the time when you entered marketing, because I know that you've spent basically more than 25 years. So as at the time you entered marketing, marketing wasn't really taught in schools. So it was sort of like people went on to do mass communication, and then which was highly focused on broadcasting anyway. So how did you find yourself in marketing?
Thank you very much for having me on this session. It's really a privilege and really exciting each time I have to interact with members of a profession that I have come to love so much. So it's such a big. Can we mute our mics, please?
I will have to mute everyone.
Yeah. So it's such a privilege to be here. Yeah, like you said, I think my journey into marketing, much like I think Nasir El-Rufai wrote in a book that is an accidental public servant, I would say mine was accidental. I think it was a good judgment of Mr. O.S. Babatunde, who at that point was the marketing director of Unilever Nigeria, that I found myself in marketing. I applied for the management traineeship program for, and at the end of it all, my understanding was that I presented, this position that they felt was more suited for a marketing role. So the consensus decision of the panel was that into marketing, and that's how the journey started. Again, I think it was such a great privilege to have joined Unilever. To date, Unilever remains the world's #1 marketing company by far, and has developed, very competitive, training, development programs, developed tools and processes, etc. So my first 2 years was like actually getting into a university. So I went through a program that today could be equivalent to like an MBA, right? So for 2 years, I was exposed to core marketing management, sales management, production management, logistics, supply chain, finance, management accounts, financial accounts, every aspect of the business. So for 2 years, that's what I was doing. And thereafter, the journey, started as into brand management. So I was confirmed after those 2 years. I had to go through another interview called the chairman's interview to very much, confirm that I had really, really been grounded in, and ready to go. So my first job then became assistant brand manager, and over the 2 decades plus or so that I spent, I went from assistant brand manager to product manager to marketing manager, sales operations manager, marketing, trade marketing manager, then went on to Dubai to do brand development for a couple of years, and then came back as marketing director. So effectively, I covered all the levels, So I would also say with confidence that I'm one guy who went through, right from the bottom to the top of in the professional area. So yes, I came in with a degree, and I think at the point when I joined FMC, what you needed to join was a good degree. Once you have a good degree and you have the right attitude and the flexibility, and you have a good learning disposition, you could move into any of the career paths that they found appropriate. And because of the systems that existed then, you went through, and made a success of the careers. So again, I must give kudos to Unilever as a global organization. And, today, I think when I talk marketing, when I sit and discuss marketing anywhere in the world, I'm proud to say that Unilever has given me that opportunity. And even going into technology and payments technology, I think I have transferred like 99% of the skills, and competencies, into a totally new area. And I've been there now for about 4 years. And I think it is one of the most exciting times of my career, I will say. So again, success in this new role is because of the very solid and robust background
Marketing
and opportunity.
background.
Yeah. And again, one of the opportunities I've had is that I joined when you say marketing was in the analog, completely analog, everything completely manual. I saw the transition, to a point now where digital is what it is. So I can trace the evolution of the profession, both locally and nationally. So and I can therefore see both and tell you across both worlds, what the best of both, and can actually also combine the best of both to deliver a very interesting program. So in summary, I had a good preparation in the university with some basic, competencies coming out of the university. Mr. O.S. Babatunde, by the way, one of the most brilliant managers I've worked with, saw the light a couple of years ago and put me right through to marketing. And today, we're here to discuss my experience. So I think this is a good introduction. I will stop here and let others contribute. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Okeme. Interesting revelations there. So it's safe to say you're an accidental marketing practitioner, right? Okay, so I'll move on to Mrs. Ani-Mumuney. So how did you come by marketing?
Thank you very much for that question. And David, very much like you, I will also borrow that and say I'm an accidental marketer, but I think this is where I was always meant to be. Again, you start with a foundation, have a great degree, a couple of degrees under your belt. And what's the one thing that's common to all of that is logic, critical thinking, reasoning. And so naturally, I sort of like fell into strategy and business planning. So I actually came in from strategy and business planning into marketing communications. So I was doing strategy and business planning again with British Airways in the UK. I came in also through their graduate program, and they give you thorough grounding. I mean, the training they give you is stellar. In addition to that, you're exposed to different countries and to different regions as part of that training. I think it was very quickly obvious, very clear that I wouldn't be somebody who'd be pegged in any particular function per se. So they eventually then moved me around various functions. Through strategy and business planning, there was an opportunity to do some work here in West Africa. So I came down to West Africa to do that piece of work. I found that I did a lot more around business solutions and a lot more around marketing and marketing communications. And slowly, as part of the opportunities that arose, there was an opportunity to lead marketing out of Johannesburg for all of Africa. So it's one of the opportunities I took. It meant I had to go and retrain. It meant I had to go and there was always training opportunities. That's once you work for a great company, those opportunities will always be there. So there was opportunity to retrain, there was an opportunity to retool and to make sure that I brought out the best that I already had from a strategy and business planning perspective. And as they say, I've never looked back since then. So I managed the marketing function for British Airways out of Joburg, covering Africa. I then got pulled back again to head office, and I managed the same function for Europe and Africa, a much larger portfolio. But there was always that thing around contributing and giving back to the continent, giving back to Africa. I mean, Africa was always my passion. So as a result of that, I knew that I would come back home. And then came back to Africa, came back to work for the Dangote Group. I was a pioneer chief marketing officer for the Dangote Group. And again, like David, very much going into a different sector altogether. So I was in aviation, and now I moved into this conglomerate that honestly had a hand in every single pie you could imagine: manufacturing, transportation, food. We did everything, and that was great as well, because you very quickly realize that if you're a quick study, there's certain basic principles, marketing principles that you can apply regardless of the industry. Much as you must know your sector really well to be able to add value, there are basic principles you can bring across. And where am I today? I'm in financial services, and I've been in financial services now for the last 9.5 years. And again, that was a tall order, moving from that sector into financial services and doing marketing within financial services. So that's how I came to be where I am today.
Interesting. One thing I've picked out is the role that management training has really played in your careers. And it's actually quite interesting how far the management trainees you bring in from when they're fresh out of school, how you groom them and then train them for the industry. Most companies will argue that it costs a lot of money to train people and they leave when we train them. So why do we bother? So I've seen that this is actually a very key role, or in grooming. So I'll ask Mr. Adejumo, how did you come by marketing yourself?
Good evening, everyone. So the first confession I will make is that when I saw the flyer, I felt like it was a setup. When I was paired with Mrs. Mumuney and David Okeme, the truth is, they're like my employers. So when I saw it, I wanted to call Demola to say, Demola, why are you setting me up for failure? That's the honest truth. But I like to say from afar, I've never met any of you, but from afar, I've read, I've admired, and I've followed your career thus far. Specifically, Mr. David will remember Oiza Jian of Unilever, who is still very much there. She says everything like she says you're a father. That's literally how she puts it. That's me giving you candid feedback. And I'm going to tell her I was in a session that was more like a setup with very big and mighty people like Mrs. Fowler. I'm sure you know the likes of Remita George of Unilever, Mrs. Fumi Onajude of MTN then. So it just feels like I'm very uncomfortable sitting on the same table with you, but I would like to say I'm privileged and I'm grateful that I'm here to learn from you and share very little of my own accidental discharge into this profession called marketing. So the simple story is, you studied philosophy in Nigeria. The question is, what do you do with your life? When a lot of people will say you will come out and become an atheist, you won't believe in God, your parents are confused, even you are confused, like what exactly am I doing here? Some lecturers will actually walk in and tell you there's no God. So you begin to ask yourself, okay, where will a career come from this? But my parents were very clear. They said, go to school. If the course you gain admission to study is called granite, we'll put our resources together, sponsor you. After you finish your university, you will know what you will do with your life. That the first thing is, be an educated person. That once you're educated, the rest will figure itself out. And so there I was. I think for me, in philosophy, University of Benin, there was a huge perception problem. If you're in the ESCO, people just know that you are there to eat money. You are not a person of integrity. And so I was standing on my own. Someone came and said, come and become Secretary General. In my mind, I was like, see, I came to study. If you understand what it means to come from the village to university, your aim is very simple. You read your book and pass. And if there's a bus going to Lagos from your village, follow it and go and get a job, because that's where the jobs are. That's how simple my story is. And so I became the secretary, first time in history, 200 level student becoming the Secretary General as against a 300 level student. And when I got there, I just found myself like, I wanted to make a difference. Like when you see me as an ESCO member in Philosophy, University of Benin, you should see hope. Don't see me like, we're here to eat your dues that you paid. See us like, we're here for you and nothing else. And so that drove me to do a lot of oversight work as a secretary. So the president was inactive, the PRO was inactive. So I just find myself doing the writing, pasting on notice board in the night, in the morning. And so on one of those occasions, these people that come from Lagos, they are different from those of us who came from the village. So one of them, his name is Justin. Ironically, I've never met him after school. He came to me and said, Godfrey, have you heard of the word called public relations? Truth is, what do I know? Looking at my background, I just told him no. He said, you will make a good public relations practitioner. That thing didn't leave my head, but I just kept it very far in my mind. I didn't think about it. So I went to youth service year 2006, and there was this other guy, Chelsea by name. He was coming to school in Benin. And so he asked me, Godfrey, what's up, we're in camp now, your state? He said, after now, what will you do to the village or something? I said, Chelsea, no, I want to do public relations. I didn't know what it means, the details or anything, but I just told Chelsea, that's what I want to do. That a job in that space, I will pursue it as a career. And Chelsea said, Godfrey, forget about it. You have a job already. One of my mentors, Alero Edu, she runs a PR agency that, don't worry, we'll travel to Lagos to go and see her. That I will introduce you to her so that after service, you will join her agency. Cut long story short, in the entire 1 year of my youth service, the only time I left my duty post, starting from when I was deployed to Oyo State, was when we had to make a 9th trip, February 13, 2007, to Fantasyland in Ikoyi, because Mrs. Alero was hosting a show for Valentine's Day, which was February 14, the next day. So Tessie took me to her and said, Auntie Alero, this is Godfrey, the friend I told you about. Auntie Alero looked at me and said, Godfrey, go and finish with service. When you finish, come, we will talk. that is how my story started into this industry. I started with her. I will write a press release. She will put it there in my front. Like a teacher, she will mark it with red biro and say, this is wrong. You don't write like this. You know, that's how rudimentary the process was for me. From her, I moved to join Aki Adeoya, who was running marketing mix then. From there, I moved to join Dr. Seli Okogu, who runs Novel Porter One Arrow. From there, I joined Mr. Jaye of Chain Reaction. And while I was Mr. Jaye of Chain Reaction, was when the opportunity came. Someone said, the job you are doing now, there's an opening for it in MTN. The first thing I told the person was, how do you mean? You look at me and you think I can work in MTN. Who do I know there? And the person said, you just apply first now. And lo and behold, without knowing anybody, in fact, at the interview panel, they said, what question do you have? I didn't know it was a HR lady until I entered, but I did say that, are you sure I will get, like, this process is real? Like, how do you just expect that me, that nobody knows, just from nowhere become an employer of, an employee of MTN? And she said, well, the same way you didn't know anybody and you applied, it's the same way if you are the best person, because we have 5 in the last process, that if you are the best person, your phone will ring and will tell you, congratulations, come and start the job. And lo and behold, that was how I was there 4 years, and now I'm at Unilever. While on the agency side, I have worked in different accounts, from manufacturing to logistics to consumer electronics to consulting. So at the end of the day, let me be honest to say that I wasn't privileged like Oga David and Madam Mumuney to go through that very structured training process. But what I can say is that the journey on the streets, learning from my senior colleagues, I can mention a whole lot of them. They sit me down. I don't know what they found in me, because I was just one of the very many people that was working. But they just kept telling me, you can. And I kept pushing. And I'm grateful to everyone in the process so far. And I'm still trusting God that this is just nothing but the beginning. So that is my story. And like the 2 great mentors here before me have said, I think I am the real accidental discharge person into this industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adejumo. Interesting revelations as well. And one thing I picked out was the role of mentors. So sometimes you can actually go further than you can if you have the right mentors. And don't worry, we didn't put you on the hot spot. We needed somebody who also had public relations experience as well, because for brief faculty, we have everybody here: public relations, creative team, we have the brand managers, we have the marketing people, the copy, even both from the agency and the client side. So the basic role is for us to actually groom the next set of marketing professionals who will be able to learn from other people who are already ahead of them. So thank you very much, Mr. Adejumo. I'd like to introduce Mr. Lankwe Omoyele, who has been like a father to us in the brief faculty. He's right here with us. And he's a great inspiration as well. And from time to time, he helps us, he helps to set us on the right path. So moving on to the next question, and I'll ask Mrs. Ani-Mumuney this. So we see very laudable marketing campaigns that you run. I mean, for First Bank, they do so many, they have so many campaigns, whether for First Bank or the subsidiaries, that people look at them like, oh, interesting, nice, and all of that. But of course, we know that that couldn't have come to place without drawing blood and sweat. So we are going to ask you, what was the most challenging marketing activity or marketing campaign you have put together? Because, some of us, start thinking by the time at the process of setting this, putting things together, some of us start thinking, oh, it's because maybe I don't have enough experience or I don't know how to do it. That's why things are failing. But we know that, things fail even with the very biggest people. Please mute your microphones, please. Ani-Mumuney, you can go ahead now.
Great. So thank you very much for that question. And may I just quickly say this to Mr. Adejumo? I actually studied philosophy as well at the University of Lagos. Let me assure you that there's something about philosophy that just opens your mind and just totally, once it opens your mind, it means that you can really
Mrs. Ani-Mumuney, could you please unmute yourself? Yeah, we lost you for a while there.
While there, okay, great. So I'm back with you then. So I was just saying, yes, I studied philosophy as well. And for me, it's been about learning and unlearning. Over the course of my career, I've had to really make sure that you can learn from everybody. And I think that's why I've been able to quickly transition from either one sector to the other or from one industry to the other. It's that ability to learn and to recognize that you need to learn. So even in answering the question and looking at the challenging campaigns or some of the challenges that I've faced, I would say the one that readily comes to mind when I really think about having cold sweats at night was when I had to manage Europe and Africa. Now, I was running brands, policies, and communications for Europe and Africa. And the challenge around that was, it's one of those functions where you actually require language. You require, we communicate in about different languages, you know, Portuguese, Spanish, Italian. Just like you, I remember when I was going through the interview, you know, I said to them, the one challenge I have is I believe that we can almost do anything we set our minds to, but I see a huge obstacle in front of me. I don't have languages beyond English and Yoruba. I don't speak French. I don't. So how do I manage a region that has 8 language requirements? And remember, one of the functions was around policies. So yes, I knew I had a law degree and they were leaning on that around the policies. But at the end of the day, I needed to make sure I got everything right. I think the thing that taught me was, yes, you can take on work that stretches you, because that really stretched me. Why did it stretch me? It meant that for every single campaign you were running, you had to rely on other people. You had to rely on other people for the final output. You've done your campaign, you've worked with your agency, but the final output is something that you might not be able to interpret because it's language you don't understand. Yes, you have the translation agencies, but you must learn to then rely on other people. And that in itself, believe you me, is one of the things that I've learned a lot from that. And in picking and in selecting your team, once you're able to select a team that you can rely on and a team that can deliver, then you're good to go. So when you talk about the amazing campaigns, let me quickly say it's not me. It's the amazing team that I have within First Bank, if we're to use First Bank as an example. And the lessons for me came from managing the diverse regions I managed when I talked about Europe and Africa, and the challenge around having to communicate in language I didn't understand. We ran several campaigns. We launched Terminal 5 around that time. We did amazing things then. And I had to do it, like I said, in language that I didn't understand. And it meant that for your marketing, for your brand to be salient, you know, there's an authenticity that comes from being able to communicate in that language. I had amazing bosses who trusted in me. But more importantly, I realized the importance of selecting and the team that can deliver. So if you do great campaigns right now, I think the biggest challenge is in choose your agencies carefully, choose your teams carefully, put everything you need to put into the brief to ensure that at the end of the day, we're all clear about what the brief is. And usually, hopefully, with the right budget supporting it, because that's also a critical part of things, you usually can deliver. We have dropped balls. I mean, there are campaigns we've run that, you know, haven't necessarily hit the nail on the head. But I think the bigger thing is to have the spirit of try, and try again. To have the spirit that says, you know what, it's not about how many times we fall or how many times we fail. It's about how we pick ourselves up. I can pick specific campaigns, but perhaps some of my greater campaigns haven't been the campaigns that are big and that have huge budgets behind them. The campaigns I've loved the most are the campaigns that really make an impact in touching lives, in changing behavior, and campaigns that I can go back and look at and say, that was really different. But please let me mention one other thing. My approach to marketing communications is very strategic, and it draws from my strategy background. And as a result of that, I'm not so much focused on campaigns. I'm more focused on engagements, and I'm more focused on how we change behaviors, how we change demands, what the trends are showing us. And for that reason, I give another example that I really loved, where I was able to look at a need and then create a demand, help and support creating a product, and then position that. And that product is still being used today in Nigeria, across West Africa. But what was exciting about it was that we also took it out to so many different countries around the world. So you look at things like that, and you're truly appreciative because there are things that have really changed the way a particular industry or the way a particular sector works. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ani-Mumuney. I picked out a couple of things which are actually very important. Choose your agencies carefully, and then choose your team carefully, and then have it the spirit of try again. Not all campaigns will work. Not all campaigns will give you the objectives that you were meant to achieve. So, Okeme, please tell us, what has been your most challenging experience or your most challenging marketing campaigns you have had? Bearing in mind that FMCGs have a lot of brands, and I know that FMCGs are very strategic in their marketing, and they have it all through, from the marketing to the sales to the channels and all of that. They have everything figured out. I don't know how they do it. In my short work with some GSK brands at the time, Ribena, Maclean's, and Lucozade Boost, I saw how everything flowed easily, you know. But what has been like your most challenges that you have had, and we learn from it?
So it's really, you know, interesting that when I listen to Ani-Mumuney's story, I see a lot of points that I will skip. So see, the interesting thing about marketing in an FMCG is that, you know, there is a single focus on what success is. And success is about sustainable growth, right? That you're growing your brand year on year. It's competitive growth. So competitive growth means you're gaining share. It's profitable growth. It means you're improving your profit. You're making money. So any campaign that does not move the needle, right, at the end of the day in these three areas, in my own time, I will say not great. So you may see a campaign that ticks all the boxes in terms of enjoyment. People love it. Everybody is dancing on the street because the campaign is running. If it doesn't move the parameters that are critical to the success of the brand, then you don't have a great story there. And for you to deliver on those three things as a brand owner or a brand custodian, you know, you need first a fantastic team. So that's where, again, I'm just trying to, I won't go into details because Folake already mentioned that. You need a great agency. So, I mean, you said we have quite a couple of partners in this call. So I would speak a bit on this. See, if you have a great agency, then you're most likely going to get a great communication. Because the success of any communication is, you know, have you been able to change what people believe now to a desired belief state? Have you been able to get them to change? Can we mute our mics, please?
I already muted him. You can go ahead. I just muted
All right.
him.
Can we be able to change what they do now to a desired do state? It is when you're able to get these two things right that growth happens. And therefore, you need an agency partner that will give you, you know, a great communication that will move those whatever. So important to have great agency partners. And I'm talking about creative, media, PR, all of these make up, you know, what I refer to as great agency partners. Actually, my first task when I became marketing director in Nigeria was to appoint an agency. So the very first week that I arrived Lagos here, I sat down with the outgoing marketing director then, and we went to close an agency agreement with DDB. So, you know, and I recall very, very well the first meeting. Even they had this poster on the wall, enemy of the ordinary. I still cannot, there's no way I can forget that, you know. And once I saw that and the kind of energy I saw in the team, I felt, right, this is one good partner to to go on this journey with. And you know, again, from activation, I had the EXPs of this world. You know, for PR, I had you know, quite a good setup. So about 6-7 agencies in the mix, and I will tell you that whatever I achieved or we achieved during that period, I will attribute to these great agency partners that I have. Again, competition has a way of making you making your job really exciting. So when you have a very strong competitive space and you have the right motivation and you have the right spirit, it will help sharpen your own engagement and make your job extremely exciting. So, you know, again, I came into the role with some very powerful competitors. So in Savory, you know who a competitor to deal with in Nigeria has been, right? So the guys in yellow. So we had that, you know, in every area, detergents, in personal care, etc. So that really gave, you know, us the right adrenaline as a team to move. And then money wasn't too freely available. So again, sometimes when you have a shortage, in terms of what I call shortage in quotes, you have a small budget, it has a way of powering the team. I don't believe in big budgets. You know, the smaller the budget, the more the team is able to dig into itself to develop. So that was the whole area of preparation. And then we launched into all sort of initiatives in Savory. We had the whole Jollof Rice festivals that have evolved now into Taste Trek that now is on TV as an activation on TV. So there, fantastic success. We were able to roll back competitors, you know, significantly in markets like Lagos. All the big contested markets, we took leadership. Came to #1 in Lagos, in Port Harcourt, in Abuja. You know, the big consumption cities were able to roll competition back and gain share and grow strongly. So that's one area of success. One of the ones that, you know, again, I met with some very big failure, I will call it, was in the personal wash health area. So we had a brand, Lifebuoy, that was already ready to go to market before I came into Nigeria. So the product had been produced and was, you know, being held. And all I did within the first 2 or 3 weeks of arrival, you know, was to press the button to say, let's roll, you know. And you know, in the new role, there was a lot of excitement to get things done. So in one day, we said we were going to be across 100,000 outlets in Nigeria. And we mobilized all our resources to make that happen. And on that day, we delivered 100,000 shelves, we put the brand on. But in the course of putting them on, I was in Ibadan also with the team. You press the bloody soap and the thing will just go, you know, soft like that. And so I called one of the guys to say, why is this soft? They said, no, that, you know, in production, there's what they call weathering. You produce the soap, you leave it, and then the air and so will, you know, interact with it and it hardens up, so that I shouldn't worry. There's no worry. There's no issue. So that's how we were taking pictures, celebrating, and we were confident that we had started on a good note. We then followed it up quickly with the Children's Day activation in Lagos, which actually got us into the Guinness Book of Records. You know, 48,000 children we gathered in one location. So all big things we did. And shortly after that, we started receiving reports from the market. Your product is soft. Consumers are returning this product to the shelves. So we had a disaster on our hands. So the first time in my career, first and only time, I had to do a product recall. So again, I'm not sure any brand manager will want to go through that kind of experience, where you have to go across Nigeria, across all hundreds of thousands of points of purchase to call off and mop up, your stocks and return everything back to base. So that whole process of a recall, really, really became, a big dent to the launch, and it created a whole lot of energy challenges in the team, and things like that. And I believe that that's affected the kind of momentum the brand should have taken off with in Nigeria. Of course, we succeeded in cleaning it up, but again, when you have a formidable competition, you don't make such mistakes. So I think I learned that lesson. And I think the advice to people is check, test, and test, and test. When you are doing something new, yes, all the boxes may be ticked on paper, but, the brand manager should go into the factory, go into the store, open it up, carry this product, look at it, use it, and double confirm that what you have, is ready for the market before you go. So that was one lesson that that I learned and has been with me, all through. Another area where we were, successful by far would be in oral. Again, we were doing this day and night brushing campaign. It was to increase consumption, getting people to increase their frequency of brushing and therefore use of the product and therefore growth. So we ran that campaign successfully in Nigeria, and close-up Nigeria shot up to become the second biggest close-up business in the whole world for Unilever, and I don't know what the numbers look like now, but it was something that won us a global award and something that, I'm extremely proud of. So the summary of it is the job of a brand manager or a marketing manager is that of, highs and lows. It's a leadership role. It's about, where you are successful, understand why, and keep, the success going. Where you fail, quickly, check and understand why you failed, make the change quickly, and then move forward. At the end of the day, it is, have I grown the brand in terms of in-home? Is the brand found in many more homes? Is the brand being consumed, in terms of at the right level of frequency that results in top-line growth? Am I displacing competitors? Am I growing at the expense of competition? And am I profitable? Those are the three things that, you will ultimately drive as the KPI, and that's what matters for any successful marketing director or marketing manager. Thank you. I hope I did justice.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And I quite like the thought, when you are successful, find out why. And I think that's something that a lot of us should hold on to, so that when you're not successful, you then know what's missing. Mrs. Ani-Mumuney and Mr. Okeme, both of you have talked about having the right partners in terms of agencies. But there's a new trend of agents, of clients having their agencies in-house. What are your thoughts on that? I'll ask Mrs. Ani-Mumuney this. What are your thoughts on that? There are a lot of clients these days who have their own in-house agency, and from your own point, you've mentioned the need to have the right agency. So what are your thoughts on having your agency in-house?
To be honest with you, I believe that a hybrid solution works. So to have an internal creative team, my recommendation and what has worked for me is you must have a small team in-house. There are times when there are certain things that you have to do. I mean, it depends on the volume of what you're managing. But if the volume of what you're managing is multi-portfolios across multi-products, multi-regions, sometimes you need a small internal creative team who can actually turn certain things around very quickly. I also go on to mention that a lot of people overlook the role of internal communications. I believe very much that internal communications is a big part of ensuring that the strategy of any organization starts and the brand is built from within before taking it outside. So your internal team can manage all of that for you and manage it very well because they have the pulse of the organization. They are part of it, they feel it, and so there's a role for them. But without a doubt, I would never advocate that you go in that direction fully. I believe that you need the right agencies to partner with. What do external agencies bring to the table? One, they're looking from outside in. So no matter what we say, I believe that for me, they're my sense checker. They're the benchmark. You can have a perception of yourself, but honestly, making sure that your agencies really hit the nail for you, looking in from the outside, I think is one of the values that they bring to the table. I think your agency is able to, given the depth of expertise that they're supposed to have, they're focused on creative, focused on copy, focused on research and all of that. So they deepen expertise and you can tap into that. Whilst you can have a small team internally, they can never really have the exposure that I think an agency has and the expertise and the experience that an agency will bring to the table for you. I believe in doing QA and sense checking your campaign. Relying on an agency certainly works better, but it has to be the right agency even at that. So I would always recommend a hybrid. And increasingly, I believe in making sure that your agencies come together. So multi-agency engagements is what I believe in. So whether it's your PR agency, whether it's your digital agency, whether it's your experiential agency, making sure that they all bring what they have to the table gives and enriches, I believe, the engagements and the outputs for your organization. So I'd always recommend a hybrid, a small team internally, because there are things we need to do and need to do very, very quickly. Increasingly, the pace of turnaround is not what it used to be before. There's no time to have, oh, and by the way, I also believe in implants. I believe in your agency also taking the advantage of implants so that they can get closer to the pulse of the institution. Finally, given where we are with social media, without a doubt, a small internal team who manage creatives is essential to be able to turn around some of the things that you need to turn around at great speed for social media. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I thought my mic was muted for a second. Thank you very much. Great insight. So I'd like to ask Mr. Adejumo, how have you been, what has been your relationship with your agency? So given your role at Unilever now, and of course, before now, given your role at MTN, I know you probably have to work with, most likely have to work with PR agencies. How have you managed them?
Okay, thank you. So managing agency is, as a person, understand that I started my career from there and now privileged to be on this side. But the thing I would say is that right from when I was on the agency side, I understood some fundamentals, like where I was on the agency side. I cannot, I may never know it all in terms of what is going on the client side, because there's a lot of mix happening internally that I am not privy to. So at best, the brand manager calls you for a brief, but he has just told you a part of a whole. And so you take that and in your own way, you interpret and turn in result. When I moved to the client side, it just revealed to me that, wow, it looks like it's almost like 20% kind of relationship of knowledge share. And permits me to say that it is not the fault of the client. There's so much going on there, and there's an extent to which you can't say and can't say certain things. But in managing my relationship with them is that I tell them that, see, whether you are here or on that side, there is something you bring on board that makes the piece and piece of everything become the whole. So the first thing is, agency can never be written off, just like the client side cannot be written off. Is, for me, one coin with two different sides. So I come to the table with the understanding that every time I have to meet them, I, as much as possible, bring them into your shoes. Bring them into what are the challenges, what are the threats, what are the opportunities, what are the advantages, what is the market scape, what is the landscape like, what are the government issues, regulatory issues, competitive analysis. I bring all of those things on board. And if there's anything I never forget to tell them is, don't be afraid to make your own mistake, just as I will not be afraid to make my own mistake. It is from these activities that we do that we will learn to be better. And you've heard Mr. David and Mrs. Ani-Mumuney mention, there is one thing that I have come to realize that we tend to take for granted, and that is internal engagement. Understand that the agency person is looking outward, whether experiential, whether digital, whether PR, that focus is outside. But there's this person who is inside, who works for the organization, who lives the organization, who breathes the organization, that most often than not, we just feel like he or she should know. But the truth is, as you focus your energy on that target, whether government, whether mass market, whether A, B, C, however you want to classify it, your people inside, the truth is, they are your best and they are your biggest ambassadors. You hear this thing they call word of mouth. Whatever they tell their neighbors, their families, their friends, their loved ones, that's marketing. So for me, in managing agency-client relationship, I bring on board the opportunity to say, you don't need to know it all, but whether you are shared, whatever information you are shared with, you can make the best out of it. And one thing I found with agencies is that creativity juice, energy, passion, enthusiasm, you can't take it away from them. So the client person might naturally be the conservative and protective person that says, I can't do this, I can't do that. But the agency person is that person that helps you unlock creativity, that makes you feel like, makes you see that, oh, this is possible, that is possible. So I see them like, if I am going to be successful, they have to be successful. So how far I want to be successful is how far I will drag them in the journey of planning, execution, research, and reporting.
Thank you very much. So we're going to take questions now from the audience. So if you have questions, just raise your hand. So I will see your hands raised and then I'll call you up to ask your questions. Meanwhile, I can see Yemi Agugwa here. She works with Mrs. Ani-Mumuney, so I can say that her team is here supporting her. And I can also see Toka supporting Mr. Adejumo here. I don't know anyone from Systemspecs, so I'm sure there are some people who are here that I don't know supporting Mr. Okeme as well. So you brought in your arsenal for this as well. So I'll just quickly take while we're waiting for people to raise their hands for the questions, I'll quickly take ask one question, and I hope that in 2 minutes each, we can answer that. So typically the agency person thinks, oh, the client person or the person from the client side, the brand manager from the client side doesn't basically do anything. He or she just sits around twiddling their thumbs and probably just send us a brief for us to do. So can you run us through a typical day? What do you do from when you resume to when you close? A typical day for a marketing person on the client side, so that when we cross over to the client side, we don't get bumped up when we think that, oh, all of the ideas we had were not true. So I'll start with Mr. Okeme. I'll move through to Mrs. Ani-Mumuney and then come back to Mr. Adejumo in 2 minutes, please, while I take questions from the members of the audience.
So if client doesn't do anything at all, at least the client writes a brief, right? Hello?
Yes,
so the client writes a brief, which is a critical tool in the success of whatever the agency process is. So a good brief must have, clarity as to what the brand needs to achieve in a communication process. So within Unilever, there are tools that are used in the process of creating a good brief. So a tool like a task map, which will define who the target audience is, where is the target audience in terms of mind and action now, and where do we want to move him or her to, right? And then, you know, a clear picture of what success should be about. So if you see a brief that doesn't summarize everything into this as an objective, then that's not a great brief. So beyond that, so what I've mentioned is the strategic role of a brand manager. It is a brand manager's job to understand the consumers, understand the market, and distill that into a powerful brief that comes to an agency and that triggers the whole process. On the operational side, the brand manager is the custodian of the brand, as it were, in the company. And he manages, you know, what in classical marketing is called the 6 Ps, right? So the 6 Ps, you know, so for product, is the brand manager's day job to ensure that his or her product is produced to the right brand quality objectives, right? So he liaises with production, with all those processes in the organization to ensure that the brand that leaves the company has the integrity and the seal of quality on it. So it's a day job for the brand manager. In terms of pricing, the brand manager is the chief pricing officer. He takes, again, day-to-day cost decisions, competitive context decisions to ensure that pricing is right and pricing is being done to achieve the pricing strategy of the brand. In the promotion space, it's the job of a brand manager to every day say, look, this is where I am losing, let's say I'm losing share in ShopRite. I need an activity to run in ShopRite. So it's his job to make sure that those activities are structured and delivered within the organization. If you look at place, which is physical distribution, right? It's the brand manager's job to liaise with sales and distribution and all the go-to-market elements to ensure that the brand is available everywhere so that as consumers go out, you know, they're able to pick it. And then another one, which is big, which is also strategic and linked to the brief, is the proposition. So the brand manager is the owner of the brand idea, right? And his or her job is to make sure that at any point, activities that are going on within the company, within the trade, you know, are aligned and reinforcing that proposition. So typically, across these 6 mixed elements, you can see a brand manager will have a 30 plan, right? Or a 60-day action plan or a 90-day action plan. And you can account for his or her time by looking at that and saying, okay, what did you achieve in the last 5 days? What did you achieve in the last 20 days, 30 days, etc. So it's a full 24/7 engagement role, because he or she must answer for the performance of the brand every week. Did you achieve target? Yes, no. Why didn't you achieve? So every week, he has to stand in front of his superiors to explain why a brand is behaving in a certain way in the trade. So it's a very, very intensive, you know, high energy position. So there are no dull moments, and nobody must have that feeling that these guys just push briefs and wait to get on briefs. That certainly is not correct. They are the workhorse of the organization as far as building brands are concerned. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Okeme. Mrs. Ani-Mumuney, 2 minutes, please. We have questions already piling up so that we can take the questions.
I'll make it very brief. So I concur to everything David has already said. So that already answers all of that. But in addition, if you're looking at financial services, for example, where it's intangibles that you're selling, a critical part of what you need to do is make sure that you continue to drive transaction volumes in driving your products, creating the demand for your products. But before you even get to the stage where you're talking of writing a brief, part of what our key function is the engagement internally around how best to position, what the value proposition should be, what the customer journey should be, and along the customer journey, where we place our products as a result of that, because we're talking of intangibles. You need to spend a lot of your time demonstrating real return on investment. Return on investment and the measures by each of those products differ considerably. So you're spending time engaging so that at least you then have the buy-in internally to say, this is where we're going. So you're distilling strategy into operational strategy, into tactical activity. A lot of your time is spent doing that. You're taking on board the product engines, the aspirations of the product engines, the KPIs of the product engines, and you are turning it into something more tangible, into something that our customers can actually engage with. So on a daily basis or in any given month, your question was specifically to what do you spend your day doing, as it were. You're busy looking at the numbers, you're looking at the campaigns that you have, you're looking at the engagements you have, you're looking at your segments, and you're ensuring that across all the segments, you're present. You're looking actually at your customer service, you're looking at your delivery channels, you're looking at all your touch points and making sure you have consumable material at every single touch point. Now, all of this is 24/7. One of the things I always say to people is we don't go to sleep. As marketing communications practitioners, what I find is that you're wired on round the clock, especially because you're doing that for your own brand, you're doing that for your organization, but you're also having to keep an eye out on the competitive landscape. And sometimes you need to react very quickly and react very, very fast. So it's an exciting, I think, career. It's an exciting position to be in, never a dull moment.
Thank you. Mr. Adejumo?
Permits me, Mr. David and Mrs. Folake, to put it like this, that say, there's a lot. I'm struggling to add anything new, but rather let me just say, it's just like I have an event planner that I've told my wife is pregnant, delivery is December 21st, and all that the event planner is expecting is by the week after 21st of December, we'll rent chairs, canopy, music, and we'll welcome the baby. But permit me to say that from the day one the pregnancy comes in, you are thinking of which hospital do we use, antenatal, what is the sex of the baby, what clothes are we buying, how do you take the mother to hospital when labor comes in. You plan, is it going to be daytime, is it going to be nighttime, when should I take my leave so that I'll be available for her. These are the reality that comes to play in the management of a brand. So for me, it's like a human being, like that baby that is coming. So you as the agency, I have put you when the baby comes. But before the baby comes, like Mr. David and Ms. Folake have said, there are internal and external stakeholders to be managed, from logistics to planning. Raw materials are coming. I want to make one adjustment. I want to add this flavor to this brand. I want to change it. I've got information from the sales team that consumer is doing this promo. They have brought down their price and increased quantity. Those are things that I go to the office, I am worried about. Guess what? There are government regulators you need to manage. Your regulators, your NAFDAC number, your SON number. These are your job. You might not be the one going to those offices, but you are the one to push the person whose job it is to say, this product is coming out. Where is the SON number? Where is the NAFDAC number? That's what like a baby that is coming in the womb is. That you have to sleep the baby, wake the baby. You even look at what is the blood pressure of the mother of the baby, so that you will not go and overshoot and enter a state of eclampsia. So there are so many things that goes on inside that at the end of the day, the only thing you probably communicate to the agency is that the baby is coming December 21st. A week after that, we will have a naming ceremony. So for agency to think that, maybe all we do is brief writing, and I think like Mr. Davis said, if you would deliver a good brief, trust me, you have done a good job. And like Mrs. Folake said, internal stakeholders, trust me, you need to walk up every day. You know, you don't send a mail and sit down. You walk that mail. You don't talk to the person and think that they have gotten it. Reminders, timelines, these are critical dynamics that If anyone should fail, trust me, there will be a disaster at the time of delivery.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adejumo. So I'll now take questions from the house, and I'd like to start with Ekene Ajayi, and she says, how often do you call pitches? Do you give new PR agencies opportunity? I think she should unmute the microphone and speak. I'd like to hear from her. Ekene Ajayi, are you here with us? Please unmute the microphone and ask your questions directly. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Good evening. Ekene Ajayi has already introduced. I actually have two questions. The first one being, some companies have been joining on the communication department. So as a PR person, most times when you probably want to transition from the agency to the client, you find out that you have more communication knowledge than the marketing knowledge. So what advice would you give to someone that wants to transition? And then the second question is, how often do you call for pitches, and do you give opportunities to new PR agencies to be part of these pitches? Because I know that most times they look out for the big agencies and call them for pitches. What opportunities are there for new PR agencies? Thank you.
Okay. I'd like Mr. Adejumo to take the first one, which is how do you transition as a PR person in the agency to PR person on the client side? It speaks, I mean, it's sort of related to what he has done. And I'd like Mrs. Ani-Mumuney to take on the second one of how do you pick your agencies? Do you call only the very big ones, or do you call the small ones as well? So, Mr. Adejumo, over to you.
Transitioning from agency to client side, let me be honest to say that I am not sure there is a cast in stone rule or science to read, but what I would just say is that number one, when you're on the agency side, be deliberate. Number one, to be a person of value, be interested in the numbers. I would say, and with all humility, when I was on the agency side, there were times that there were no briefs, and I walk up to my MD with permission to say, can I go and sit with Paul of LG today? Let me just know what they are doing, even if they are not sending us brief. Can I go and sit with Shego of Accenture? Let me just say hello to him. And when you get there, you realize that the truth is, for some reasons, we are not on the table for them. Not that we are not important, but they are dealing with other issues that are not agency related at that moment. So when you go at such moment, you will see things that are not so obvious to the agency person, and you begin to associate yourself with them. Like, and I would say even building personal relationship and network, it counts. Like, to your clients, do you only communicate when a brief has come? Do you know that for me, way back 10 years ago, I knew issues of mental health. So there are times I'll just call my client to say, I'm just calling to check on you. Are you fine? And they'll be, sometimes they will turn me down like, why are you calling me? Like, I'm the one to call you. But I didn't give up. Be deliberate, be a person of value. Person of value will mean beyond what the client asks you. You know, look out for their interests. It could just be that market research, market dynamics, new trends. You are the one sharing it with them. The day an opening comes, the truth is they won't employ you automatically, but they will see you like someone that can add value on their side. And so they will let you know that there is an opening, come like other persons and put your best foot forward. And if you're the one that gets it, congratulations.
Thank you, Mrs. Ani-Mumuney. The second part of it.
Great. Before I take that, let me just quickly add to what Mr. Adejumo has just said. Very, very valid. But if you're on agency side and there's an opportunity to implant on the client side, take it. Look for those opportunities to actually spend time with your clients by implanting. We've seen that work very well for us. There's a cross-pollination that happens, but it also means that when I then have a vacancy, it's easier because you've then gotten experience on the client side as well, because you've gone to work as an implant on the client side for your agency. Speaking to whether or not we only call the big agencies to pitch. I think I'd like to sort of like turn that on its head. The reality is, with all of us, just as with our personal brands, what do you do with your personal brand? How visible are you? Is there easy recall for that particular agency? Does the quality of your work stand you out? Do we remember your work and think, oh, I want that as well? Those are some of the things that actually come into the mix when we're looking to call for agency pitches. And in my experience, sometimes we have a need for the large agencies and sometimes we have a need for the smaller agencies. Depends on what it is that we're looking for. Remember also that there are policies within organizations that sometimes affect whether or not you can call the smaller agencies, because if you're managing a large region, sometimes you have a global agreement and you have a global agency who has certain affiliations, so sometimes you're tied up as a result of that. But if in particular you're with a small agency, some of the things I would suggest that you do is very similar to what Mr. Adejumo said. Often I would suggest that you find time to, on your own, proactively share opportunities with the client. Share opportunities with the client, share what you observe, share market insight with the client, and give them your own best case scenario of what you could do for them in terms of closing the gap that you see that they themselves may not see. It's really about marketing yourself to them. But I would also suggest that dimension the market. When you dimension the market, look at those who have those global policies that perhaps, no matter how good you are, would mean that you don't get a look in. Focus your energy on those who perhaps don't have those policies and therefore will probably give you a chance, and then use that to continue to build the profile of the agency. I also suggest a number of times to agencies that, are there collaborations that we can begin to think about in our market? I see too much fragmentation. I see a situation where you have a few years experience under one's belt and straight away, I want to start off my own agency as well. I would very much advocate that there's need for collaboration. There's need for us to look at new models of collaboration. I'm not suggesting don't start your agency, do so. But perhaps there are ways in which you can collaborate perhaps with the larger agencies. We must find new models that will work for us to make sure that the very best of our creativity is what comes to the fore. It saddens me when we go to a lot of the global awards and we're not seeing as many of our output, of our work, of our talent on the stage. And I think it's partly to do with the fragmentation that we see. So to answer your question specifically, we at First Bank, and the group that I look after, which is FBN Holdings, made up of the various subsidiaries, because of our requirements and because of our needs, very different. First Bank may go for a big agency. FBN Insurance Brokers, where I'm the chair of the board, will certainly go for a much smaller agency because that's the sort of budget that they have. We are able to collapse our budget sometimes and work together, but there are times when the regulator requires us to ring fence work that we do. And so therefore, work that's being done for the investment banking arm and the agency working for that arm may not be able to work for the First Bank arm. So there's always opportunity for different scales of agencies to come on board with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ani-Mumuney. I'll move on quickly to Mr. Okeme. So Harry Obi is asking a question. I'd like him to unmute himself and ask the question. He's looking at interviewing creatives. What are the top qualities you look out for when you interview creatives? But I'd like him to speak for himself. Harry, are you here?
Yes, I am. Good evening, everyone.
Okay, Mr. Okeme will take your question. Good evening.
Good evening. So it's a personal dream of mine to eventually transition into the client side. I mean, a lot of young creatives also have this dream, but generally, I've not spent so much time on the agency side. So I feel like I still have a few more years to go. But then I want to look at the big picture. So I want to ask our panelists. So if they're interviewing creatives for the department, what are the top hard skills and soft skills that they look out for? I mean, if you're it depends on the role, any kind of role at all, from strategy to maybe copywriting to whatever it is. What are the top skills you look out for? What would you say you'd see in someone and be like, I want this guy on board?
Great, thank you. Mr. Okeme, please.
Yeah. So in a typical interview sessions, we usually do what's called a group selection interview that will use a couple of processes. So one of them will be like a team session where you have like 6-7 people, and there is a topic that is given to the team, and you choose a moderator or you decide to start talking. That's up to you as a team. So what you watch out for will be things like leadership, who begins to organize the team to make sure that it gives structure to the conversations. Such person begins to score marks for leadership. In terms of the language that people speak, there are some languages you hear that you say, oh, wow, this guy has a passion for growth. So passion for growth is somebody who is always forthcoming with, ideas to say, look, we can turn this around, right? This looks not so great, but we can do X, Y, Z to turn it around. So again, you score marks for, passion for growth. So mostly those are competencies based, recruitment criteria, I will say. So then there are other things. The core skills you will see from when you do a one-on-one, you look at what has the person done, and then you can ask direct questions, etc. But let me just give, again, I don't know how the industry is now, but the formula that we had before, client agency relationship, that was great and that allowed for easy transitions both ways, where that, a new brand manager coming on board must do an agency induction where he goes to work with the agency for, let's say, a month. And within that period, he gets to understand the entire processes within the agency, and vice versa. The agency partner, the agency side of his counterpart in the agency would also come in and do an induction with so again, he gets exposed to the processes, on both sides. And the working relationship is such that if you have a sudden exit of a brand manager, for instance, the best person to bring in to hold forth or to fill the gap will be the person on the agency side, because the person already understands, fully the brand, understands the, the organization and things like that. So what Folake I said earlier about, if you have an opportunity to implant, use the word implant with the client, jump at it, right? Go out and get, as much information about the business and the brand that you are managing as much as possible. So you are so immersed in it that you can immediately be confident to put yourself forward, for the role. So I don't see any, once you have these basic competencies, a development mind, a mind that is passionate about driving growth, some of the hard skill areas will be things like Mumuney was saying, you look at the data, you understand trends, so these are there. But I think the point I want to leave is agencies are technically extensions of the brand office. And unless you're working like that collaboratively, or if you're working like that collaboratively, if there is an opening, the agency is the first point of call for talent to move over to the other side.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll move on to Mrs. Ani-Mumuney now. Looking at your profile, you are the chair of FBN Insurance Brokers. You're the vice chairperson of Junior Achievement Nigeria. You're an executive council member of the World Federation of Advertisers, on and on and on. How do you juggle work, all of this work and family?
So that's a question that comes to me a lot. And I think I always like to say, it starts with you deciding what you want. And once you decide what you want, you approach it the same way that you would approach, and using the same principles that you would use to position your product. You use the same principles that you would use to position a brand. What do you have? So if you think about it, you have certain resources: time, your values, your principles, the amount of money you have. Those are resources. How do you put these resources into these few things that you want to achieve? You want a career, you want a rewarding career, you want to manage and make sure that you have a great family. You perhaps even want to impact your society, contribute. Like I said earlier on, one of the driving factors for me is, how do I make sure I contribute to the continent I come from? How do I make sure I contribute to the growth of Africa? The starting point is always be centered and put your purpose at the center of what you do. So if you've never done that, take time out to sit down and to determine what your purpose really is. Once you've decided what your purpose is across those three things, this much I will do, this much I will not do, be disciplined about it, be transparent about it, and then begin to work really hard towards getting it. Continue to deposit into your reputation bank. What do I mean by that? There are times within your career and within your life, it's a journey, isn't it? In the early days of the journey, it's really around how hard you work, how much you deliver, making sure that you are somebody who can be relied on to say, if I give Folake this, she will deliver to it. And therefore, the investment you need to make in your career at that point in time is about the skills, it's about, you know, the competencies, but it's also about being the stand-up guy, that one person that they can rely on. You tick that box, but then there's also the family. If family is very important to you, make sure that you put that at the center. But like I said, because it's a journey, you negotiate upfront. You negotiate when one will take ascendancy and the other will take a back seat. All of this obviously starts with pray about it and then discuss with the people who you need to discuss with. Relationships, I think, is what keeps it balanced for me. So you have the right relationships and you focus on the right relationships at work. You focus on the right relationships with family and friends. You focus on the right relationships with the networks that you belong to, the associations, so that you can make and give and create the impact that we're talking about you giving. It's not easy. I'm not going to suggest it's easy. Let me tell you about my journey. There were times when I definitely took time off work because I wanted to focus on family. There were decisions I made that were family centered. That meant rather than continue to work outside of Nigeria, for example, career was going great, but Nigeria was very important to me. Family was very important to me. And time again, I was told, but we don't do that in the regions. If you ever work for a multinational, the bigger jobs are not in the regions, the bigger jobs are at headquarters. So I would be at headquarters and I'd be angling for jobs that were in the regions, and they could never understand it. But I kept taking them back to my very first, you write a personal statement when you join. And for that first institution, I had written a personal statement. And my personal statement was focus on Africa, and in particular, contribute to developing Africa. So anything that was going to take me away from Africa was something that over time I would make sure I found a way of moving myself back there. But moving myself back there was also because relationships and family mattered to me. My family are Nigerian, they're based here, and my parents at the time were based here in Nigeria. What I wanted to do was make sure that my children got a sense of their roots and, you know, the background that they came from. So it was very important to me to keep making sure that I shifted back to that I had put at the center of my decision making, at the center of the purpose for my life, as it were, which is around focus on family or focus on impact and how you can impact others. If you're clear about what your purpose is, it becomes a lot easier for your career once it meets that point of your passion. That's the sweet spot, as it is. So if I say to you that the things that matter to me is, one, the contribution I can make, whether it be to people around me. And for that, I look at my teams, the contribution I make to the organization that I'm working for, the contribution I make in whatever role I find myself. Then what am I doing for the family? And what sort of a person am I within the family? And what sort of values am I promoting within the family? And how do I balance that? And then the third one is impact. So for example, doing this is about how do we take, this is a career that has given, or an industry that has given me a lot of joy. So taking time out on a Saturday evening to say, come and speak here, very important to me. Deciding that within the World Federation of Advertisers, there are major things that we need to move the dial on, creating time for that. Very, very important. So that which is important to you, you will create time for, but it's about finding the balance and recognizing that it's a journey. You don't have all of it at the same time. I always say to people, especially women who are also mothers, I say, you need to recognize what's important for your children at a particular time. And this is a conversation I have with the children as well. When they were very young, I carted them and I carried them everywhere with me. And I was lucky enough to have the support to be able to do that. So support from my mother-in-law. I mean, I tell you this, I made a decision way before I got married that my mother-in-law was going to be my best friend. Until today she is. She has been such a rock. So between herself and my mom, when the children were younger, I could carry them everywhere. One of the, what I still remember and I tease my youngest son about is, I can never forget, he was about 2.5 and he was asking me, Mommy, where are we working this week? I happened around that time to be working within the Casimir region, and there were times when we would be in Dubai for 2 weeks, and I realized this young boy is confused. What does he mean, Mommy, where are we working this week? Another thing he said again is, my brother came to visit and he was telling my brother, which home? We live in 6 homes. And I thought, okay, enough of this traveling and carrying these kids around. I think I need to root him better and make sure that he's rooted in solidly. So I was lucky I had that support. I carried them around. But there came a time when I couldn't do that. And I had to then take certain decisions that meant that perhaps there was a promotion. I couldn't go for that particular promotion at that point in time, but I would work my way knowing exactly what it was that I wanted. So I was prepared to sacrifice certain things as well. It's about making sure that that balance works for you. Discuss it with your partner, with your spouse. Discuss it with your bosses at work. There were times when I needed time for the family. Like I said, if you've built up your reputation for being somebody who delivers, sometimes they will be able to give you some leeway in terms of, okay, you're not here now, but insofar as you deliver. So you make sure you work really hard to do that. But the third thing is, if you really want to make an impact, I say to people, don't spread yourself too thin. Honestly, it's about how you manage your resources. Look at the time you have. When you have committed to something, please show up and do it. Manage what you commit to, because when you say, we want you to come and speak here, we want you to do this, measure the impact you want to have and then manage what you commit to. So the 3 things I say is, do the work, make sure you put in the work, make sure you understand what's important. For me, family is very important, and I put them at the heart and the center of everything I do. The impacts that I want to achieve in terms of to my fellow man, for my country or for my continent, in the areas and sectors that I'm interested in, gender diversity and all of that, I show up for. I dedicate time and I put in a bit of my resource to make sure that that happens. Having said all of that, none of it can be done without God, who ultimately is the starter and the finisher of it all. I think he puts the right people in your, in your path. And once you recognize that he's putting the right people in your path, ask him to just make it go well, and he does.
Thank you so much. I'm sure the younger women here would have picked a thing or two. My book is actually very full, so I've written a whole lot of things here because, they're important to me as well. I'm sorry, the question has been going to Mrs. Mumuney because she's set to leave us at 6:45. She has to be at another session for 7. But I'll take one question now, which Mr. Adejumo will answer, and then I'll go back to her to take her last question. So I'll take one now. Aki Andishola has a question, and I'd like Mr. Adejumo to answer to that question. Aki Andishola, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for this session. I think I've thoroughly enjoyed myself, and it's nice to see David Okeme again. I haven't seen him in yawns. How are you, sir? Excellent. I was just wondering.
Very well, Akim. Thanks.
Yeah, great to see you. Mrs. Ani-Mumuney, I have not met you in person, but I've heard a lot about you. So it's great to see you now. And thank you for all your great insights. And Mr. Adejumo as well. I think I've run into you on a couple of occasions in the past with Akadeya and the rest. Yeah, so Great. I was just wondering that for people like us who are now old horses, and we have spent virtually all our lives on the agency side, I'm wondering at what age or do you think it is ideal for someone to transition to the client side from agency side, if indeed a person intends to do that? The reason I asked that question is it's come up a bit in the conversation tonight. Some people, they're on the agency side and haven't spent a year or two or maybe 3. They believe that they're ready for client side, and then they quickly make the switch to client side. And then in their interaction with agency, they posture like they know everything about what we do on the agency side. And that influences a lot of the way they react to the work. I do know that a lot of organizations don't like to take anybody that is above 40, you know, moving from the agency side or, you know, in any role particularly. Most organizations want young people. But when is the ideal time for someone who is willing to or who is thinking about the transition from agency side to client side? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. King. So, let me be honest that I'm struggling here to put an age bracket to it. It might be easy to say the younger, the better, the earlier, the better. But it will not be true to just make that a box that you can't be flexible about. Because I have seen that if there's anything that matters is value. And you will agree with me that the person that brings value is not a matter of age. It can be the youngest in the team, the middle-aged person, and of course, it can be the oldest person. So if that person is the person that is most suited for the job and the opportunity comes, again, I will say congratulations, you got the job. So and again, may I say this, because I came from the agency side, and I'm not saying here now because I appreciate the aspiration that when you are there, all that you think that you be to be at the top of your career, to sign off with the signature of excellence, is to have a taste of being. But may I say that, to be honest, whichever side, I think is a bit inconsequential. I don't know if my senior colleagues will agree with me. What matters is that your position, when you were there, what did you do? How did you manage people? How did you express yourself in the job that was brought before you? So if we begin to understand that I can be on the agency for the rest of my life and retire there, you're a person of value. I could have started from the client side and of course, retired there. You're also a person of value. What matters is when you were in that position, whether client or agency side, what value did you bring on board? Did you apply yourself? Were you learning? Were you relearning? Were you unlearning? Those are the things that I think will matter. So I don't think we should stay here and now make it look like if you didn't work on the client side, you're a failure. If you didn't work on the agency side, you're a failure. Everything comes as an opportunity, time, chance. It's not you that I didn't sit down to say I'm going to cross over. I just saw the opportunity, and like I said, it was rigorous, and I was just privileged by the grace of God to move. May I confess that there are people better than me that are still on the agency side. That's the honest truth. So wherever you find yourself, please, you're a person of value, and concentrate on adding that value. If the opportunity comes for you to switch, congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'd like Mr. Okeme to speak to that briefly. So like 1 minute, because I want to ask Mrs. Ani-Mumuney one more question before she leaves us. So Mr. Okeme, just 1 minute, speak to that briefly, saying that you sort of also transition to the business side, you know, one way or the other, you transition to Systemspecs after Unilever. So, and of course, you didn't do that when you were young. So I think you speak to this briefly.
No, I think Mr. Adejumo did a lot of justice to that. At the end of the day, it is what are you bringing to the table, right? Mr. Akin Adeshola can still become a marketing director, right? It is possible. If you have applied yourself on the journey with your client, like I said earlier, if you know the systems and the processes and you understand the trade channels, you are with him, then if there is a position of a vacancy for the position of a marketing director and they want to throw it open, you certainly will be a candidate for it. So, like you said, I mean, I wouldn't put an age to it, but the truth is, as you get older, right? The executive positions are fewer and fewer and fewer, and therefore the competition for it is likely to be more. The younger you are, the more flexibility you have, and because some organizations also invest a lot in hires, invest in training and all of those, they're looking for someone who will give a 5 to 10 year kind of value back to the organization, and that's why sometimes you see them a bit whatever about age. Apart from the fact that youth and energy, is also a value that younger people bring to the organization. So there is no age to it. It is about what transferable skills do you have, and what is the kind of flexibility that you have, and what is your own personal objective. As far as the organization and your objectives meet, and it can be seen that convergence is right for the organization, you will certainly be taken. Like I said, for the bigger agencies, sorry, maybe bigger is not the right word. For, while at Unilever, those agencies that we used to work with, if there is a research brief, they are there. If there's a research debrief, they are there. If there's a launch, they are there. If there's a training, we go for same training. So you're in the same class with your agency partners. You go for market visits. You are with your so at the end of the day, it then becomes, that the gap is really not there. You are working together as a team. Therefore, it's easier to now make a transition. So that's the way I would say it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like Anyekan Ezekiel to quickly ask his question. Anyekan Ezekiel, this may be one of the last questions you'll take. Anyekan, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Quickly, this question is from Mrs. Folake Ani-Mumuney. So as Group Head Marketing and Corporate Communications of one of the leading banks in an environment like Nigeria, with so much uncertainty, volatility, and instability, what is the biggest fear you wake up with every morning? And then how do you manage stress, given the kind of role that you occupy? And how do you manage to keep your sanity intact in this kind of environment? My question is loaded.
That's a 3-in-1 question.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Anyekan. It's certainly a loaded question. What's my greatest fear? One of my greatest fears, if you remember earlier when I said my team is my strength, one of my greatest fears is when people like Anyekan leave me, which he did about, 5 years ago, to move on. So much as I enjoy people moving on, sometimes when really strong people move on, you just know that, oh my gosh, okay, here we go again. I have to fix this. Much as I encourage people moving on, I want to say it out now, very, very publicly. It's one of the biggest challenges that I face because I believe that there is a dearth of great marketing talent. I believe that it's important for leaders to invest time in their people. And whilst I'm very encouraging, and some people will tell you Folake actually seeks opportunities for her staff, whilst I encourage it, it is still a big fear for me because what that means is perhaps it might then take me quite a while to be able to then, you know, close that gap. We try and do all the succession planning that you can do, but sometimes it doesn't work. And honestly, Anekan, what's with all this Mrs. Folake Ani-Mumuney? I'm fam, and you know that. Once part of the family, always part of the family. So please, one strikeout for you there with all this Mrs. Ani-Mumuney business. But just going to the challenges generally, I'll tell you, for me, the biggest thing that I believe I owe the industry is to break that glass ceiling and make sure that marketing communications and those who practice marketing communications are seen as having the right to be at the table. So I want to be sure that we're not relegated and only brought out in certain sectors or in certain industries when it's time to run a campaign. We need to be seen as being part of the strategy team. What we do is very, very strategic. It's right at the heart and the purpose of the mission and vision of the organization. So for me, my biggest challenge is making sure that as a team, we don't just look at our output and we're excited about the output. Oh, we've done a great campaign. It's airing on TV and it's broken and this and that. Because we can very quickly relegate ourselves to people who are just about colors and about, you know, the fluffy things, as it were. It's important to me, therefore, that return on investment, as David said when he opened, why are we here? We're here to move that needle. We're here to make sure that there's a clear return on investment. We're here to make sure that the shareholders are happy. We're here to contribute to the revenue and to make sure that at the end of the day, we drive sustainable, profitable growth. Now, if that's what we're here to do, we must be very comfortable with numbers. We must be very comfortable with the analytics. We must be very comfortable with research and make sure that whatever we're saying is rooted in insight. We must be seen as valuable contributors to the organization. That's how you get into the C-suite. That's how, you know, an organization sees you and says, fine, you're in the marketing function, but we want you to come and lead the turnaround of this other subsidiary that we have. It is because you have to make sure that you are doing much more than just the role that you've been brought in to do. You have to add value. So what keeps me awake at night and what I find challenging is finding a way of ensuring that as a discipline, as a function, that marketing communications practitioners hone their skills, yes, but recognize that there is more that they are called on to do. There's a higher challenge that we must do, such that as we move our role forward in the industry, those coming behind us have something to step into that is not as difficult as what we had to step into. For a lot of you who are here, who manage budgets and who have to deal perhaps with CFOs who have to present to the board the justification around some of what you want to do, ensuring that the measurements around what you want to do is understood is one of the challenges we face regularly. But collectively, I think we're getting better at it, and we need to continue to make sure that we get better at it. So that's to the question on the challenges and what I find most challenging. I think what I find most challenging is making sure that we're able to quantify in real terms and build that narrative, building the right brand for the marketing communications function itself within the organization is one of the challenges. It's one that I'm passionate about. And I really want to make sure that it's something that's at the forefront for all of us, that it's something we need to do. We don't just go in there, we're successful as marketing practitioners for the particular organization we're working for. There's a bigger picture that we must all contribute to. Anika, I hope that answered your question. There was a second part to your question, but I thought I had rolled it all into one.
How do you manage stress, given your role?
How do I manage stress? I wrestle with me. Stress is just, you just have to manage it. So what do? Like I said earlier on, I make sure that I'm in the present. Mindfulness is an important thing. So when I switch off, I try to switch off. I said earlier on to you that it's a 24/7 function. It's a 24/7 role. A crisis can break out at any point in time. You need to be alert, but you also need to understand how you switch off. You must pay attention to your physical well-being, to your physical health, as well as to your mental health. I don't think enough of us. So my father was a doctor, and he used to say to us that there's all this investment in physical well-being, And he used to warn that mental health will catch up with us globally because we were not paying attention. There were no budgets, there were no policies around mental health. And indeed, I think the time has come. So I've always believed that whatever it is that soothes you, find what that thing is. Find your me time and find your me space. Again, negotiate some of this with your bosses, such that when you switch off, and they recognize that you've switched off. Part of how you do that is when they know that you're reliable and you can deliver. When you have switched off, they're not panicking. They're not worried that they've given Folake something to do and we don't know whether she's working on it and they're having to check up on her. So I switch off. I look at those things that interest me. I love to read. I love watching movies. Those of you who know me know I love the water, anything to do with the water, being around water, I love that. And all of that is very soothing. But I'm blessed to have 3 wonderful children. And I used to think that, oh, every stage of life, you know, this is the most exciting stage. I'm still growing and developing, that every stage really is exciting. So I have a 24-year-old boy, he's the oldest, and the conversations and the debates and just watching him grow and flourish and become his own person, it actually distresses me. I sit back and I let them take on board all the things that used to worry me before now. I love looking after people. I'm a very people-oriented person. And it actually distresses me to see how I can support people. So those are some of the things I do that help my stress level.
Amazing. Thank you to the panelists. We'll just take only one question before we leave, which Mr. David Okeme will take. I'd like to thank Mrs. Ani-Mumuney for an amazing session and for finding time to be here with us today. I know she needs to leave because she has a 7 o'clock session. If we still have some questions for you, but we'll find a way to send that across to you. Maybe when you have time, you can do maybe a voice note to just reply them in the brief faculty, and then we'll share them in the brief faculty. A big thank you to you.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate you, members of the Senate. They are here. I can't call all of them. Wale is here, Lanre Basamta, Adeshola, Lexane, we are all here. And of course, the senior faculty members as well. There's Mr. Lankwe Moele here. Thank you, Mr. Akin Adeshola. I've heard so much about you, but I haven't met you, so I didn't know your face. Your daughter actually interned with me while I was at Insight. I'm sure we'll take that conversation to another place. I'll ask one last question for Mr. David Okeme so that we can meet at 7 o'clock time. And that question is from, 1 minute, please. Okay, so what's the best way to approach a change in career from an insurance customer service person to a full-time role in brands and corporate communications? And I'm passing this question to Mr. Okeme because he transitioned from marketing director at Unilever to MD at Systemspecs, which is sort of technology. So there are 2 different areas. So what's the best approach? Ronke, are you here? Quickly take your question so that we can go. You have 1 minute. Ronke Oyetayo.
Okay, before you start, let me say my goodbye so that I can exit the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay. Pleasure to see you all again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Is there, I should just go ahead and respond.
Okay. Yes, go ahead and respond. Just go ahead because of time.
Yeah, so again, I think my own journey, so there are transferable skills that you have, which, you know, you must be able to situate in the context of where you are going to. So a career in insurance, I guess you're in a sales role within insurance, and you want to go into a corporate communication role within the financial system. So I think within the financial system, there will be a sales function, for instance. So sales and the skills that are required to sell, there are some of them that are like universal, that can operate anywhere. So those core skills you take across. But when you get in there, it's a totally new industry, totally new context with its own body of knowledge, which is which you will have to patiently learn. You know, so that learning process can be really fast or slow, depending on your own level of adaptability or flexibility within the system. So you go there with the core skills that you have built in insurance, which is, you have a target, you draw out your strategy to achieve the target, you know how to deploy your tactics to achieve the targets and all of those things. Those things will be useful in any industry that you go into. So I think the bigger objective will be around how do you get in, and once you are in, how do you adapt? How do you learn the terminologies? How do you, and what I told someone, interestingly, I had a chat with a young man this morning to say, look, when you go into a new place, please, if you have to show your vulnerability, please show it, right? You go into for instance, I went into a technology, it's like APIs, and you're wondering, what is it? What are they saying, right? You hear things like technology stack, you hear developers are talking about Java, so it will take a while for you to get into the flow. So have the humility and the level-headedness to also learn those things that are critical, that you're going to now zip into your own, the skills that you're bringing in to be successful. So I mean, for me, those are the things that are important, and like Adejumo kept saying, it's about value. What value are you bringing in? So you go into a new organization, you should be clear, absolutely clear, and also showcase to the organization the areas where you can add value quickly in the short term, and the areas where in the longer term you can bring value in, and have a roadmap, So 3 to 6 months, you should aim to be fully operational in any new role that you find yourself. So that would be my contribution on this. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Okeme. It's a pleasure to have you here. Larry Basamta will take the closing remarks, but just before then, I'd like to again recap that the Brief Faculty is an organization, or it's a community of people, of marketing communications people, whether you're on the client side or you're on the agency side, who actually come together to learn, discuss the trend, discuss the industry and how we grow. And it's also a mentorship platform where the younger people can speak with the older people and then learn from them. So if you'd like to be a member of the Brief Faculty, please drop your number on the chat pane and we'll add you to the Brief Faculty School. So thank you, Lanre. Please take the vote of thanks while we'll close up the session.
Yeah, thanks a lot, boss. Boss, good evening. Nice to hear you speak.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. I mean, I actually worked with David for some time, and it's such a pleasure just to hear him speak to us. We just want to thank all of our speakers. It was such a blessing to hear from them, and more importantly, to learn from their experiences. I mean, we've been doing this now for some time, and each edition seems to bring its own perspectives, and it seems to have a lot of value to us in different ways. So thank you for making out the time, particularly despite the short notice. I was aware that we didn't reach out on time as best as we could, but for making out the time, we really do appreciate. And for all members of the Brief Faculty, School 1, School 2, and non-members, we really appreciate you finding the time to join us. We hope it was as enlightening and fulfilling for you as it was for us. I'm sure sometime in July we'll be bringing a couple other mentors to also learn from them and listen to them share their experiences. So thank you for making the time. Hopefully we'll see you all next month when we converge again. Have a beautiful weekend. Enjoy the rest of your month. God bless you. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Adejumo. Thank you, Mr. Okeme, and thank you everyone for the time. Thank you, Mr. Lankwe Moile, and thank you, Mr. Akin Adeshola. We'll private chat you later. It's a pleasure to have you all here. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Akin, bye.
Yay, Babao, I need to come and see you later. So we need to catch up. Thanks.
Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?